Good morning, YouTube. Welcome back to the channel. This is IMAX Sports with another football video, and today I'm talking about the AFC top 10 wide receivers for the 2022 NFL season. I did a video for the NFC top 10 wide receivers, and I'm now doing the AFC. I meant to do this video a lot sooner, but this has arguably been the busiest week of my life for the past, 2.5 years. So, yeah, I haven't gotten around to it yet, but I got around to it today. So, this video is a lot of fun to make. This was a little more interesting than the NFC one because of all of the changes in personnel in the AFC, especially at the wide receiver position in the past year, as well as quarterback position. So almost all of these wide receivers are playing with new quarterbacks for this season or new teams. So with that being said, let's get right into it. First off, we have Robert Woods at number 10. Robert Woods has been on the Rams for the last few years. Now he is on the Tennessee Titans with Ryan Tannehill as the quarterback. I have Robert Woods projected to have 90 catches for 140 on 140 targets for 64%, 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns, 65 yards per game, and 12.2 yards per reception. I think this is pretty reasonable considering Ryan Tannehill is a pretty average quarterback, and Robert Woods is going to be the starting wide receiver on the Tennessee Titans. A.J. Brown is gone, Julio Jones is gone, and Robert Woods really hasn't had a starting job for a couple of years. He's been behind Brandon Cooks, and then he was behind Cooper Kupp. So I'm excited to see Robert Woods as a starter. I'm not expecting a whole lot from him. Also, Derrick Henry is going to take the bulk of the touchdowns and also a lot of the offensive yards, but I still think Robert Woods is going to have a very strong season. At number 9, we have Amari Cooper. I have Amari Cooper catching 85 passes on 130 targets for 64% or 65%, 1,173 yards and 9 touchdowns, 71 per game, 14.6 yards per reception. The Browns' existence as a franchise is really my biggest concern with Amari Cooper. I originally had Amari Cooper at number 5 or 6. And then he got shot down the list because of the whole who is their quarterback going to be situation. We don't know if it's going to be Deshaun Watson. We don't know if it's going to be Baker Mayfield. We don't know if it's going to be someone else. We don't know if the Deshaun Watson situation is getting stupider by the minute. The Cleveland Browns are getting stupider by the minute. Amari Cooper is only on this list because he has 2 pretty solid quarterbacks and he is an amazing wide receiver. So no matter what happens, he will be a top 10 wide receiver in the AFC. But the Browns' existence as a franchise is really the big question mark here. Number 8, we have Courtland Sutton. Courtland Sutton's put together some pretty solid seasons over the last few years. He's been a little inconsistent, but he's also had some injuries. I have him catching 81 passes on 135 targets next season for 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns, 71.5 yards a game, and 15 yards per reception. I think that this type of offense will work pretty well with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson throws a lot of deep balls. I think that with the rushing game of the Broncos, with their new running backs as well as with their young running backs as well as Melvin Gordon and their supporting cast of wide receivers, including Jerry Jeudy, I think that Courtland Sutton's going to get a lot of deep passes. He's going to do really well with the deep ball, and I think that the biggest question mark is who will step up between him, Tim Patrick, and Jerry Jeudy. I think Courtland Sutton's going to be the one to step up and gel well with Russell Wilson because he's the most veteran player. But if Jerry Jeudy or Tim Patrick are the ones that step up, then they could easily be on this top 10 list by the end of the season instead of Courtland Sutton. At number 7, we have Keenan Allen. I have Keenan Allen catching 105 passes on 160 targets for 66%, 1,275 yards and 8 touchdowns, 75 yards a game, and 12.1 yards per reception. This is just a fact. Everyone on this list is a prediction except for Keenan Allen. He's never had 1,200 yards in his career, but he's also never played a full 17 games. So, the matter of the fact is Keenan Allen will have between 1,200 and 1,300 yards this year, and he will have between 6 and 10 touchdowns. There's not really a question there. He just does the same thing every single season. He's the most consistent wide receiver in NFL history. So, yeah, there's Keenan Allen. At number 6, we have Juju. He doesn't get a last name. He's just Juju at this point. 98 catches on 140 targets. This assumes that he plays all of the games next year. 70%, 1,300 yards, 9 touchdowns, 78 yards a game. It's kind of disrespectful, in my opinion, putting Keenan Allen below Juju. But Juju does have Patrick Mahomes as the quarterback. And Tyreek Hill is gone. But points of emphasis, TikTok, supporting cast, and consistency. He needs to be consistent in order to get these numbers. TikTok needs to take a step back, and football needs to be the emphasis. And then there's an insane supporting cast in Kansas City right now. I know that Juju is the number 1 wide receiver, but they do have Mecole Hardman still. They still have Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and Travis Kelce, obviously, and they have Josh Gordon. So I think that there's a lot of stats to go around, a lot of players to get the ball from Patrick Mahomes, and I think that this is Juju's ceiling. Number 6 in the AFC is his ceiling. 1,300 yards and 9 touchdowns is his ceiling. This is where I think he can get to if he gels with Mahomes, takes the season seriously, and plays a full 17 games. At number 5, we have Michael Pittman Jr. I have him catching 115 passes on 165 yards, 1,440 yards, 9 touchdowns, 85 yards a game, 12.5 yards per reception. Really, it's just Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan is coming to the Indianapolis Colts. Michael Pittman Jr. showed real promise last year. I think that these two are going to gel really well, and he's going to have a very Julio Jones type season. With that being said, I can see him having more than 1,400 yards. I can definitely see him having more than 1,400 yards. Jonathan Taylor is going to take up a lot of yardage. Their supporting cast will take up some yardage, but I think that I need to see him gel with Matt Ryan before I put him any higher than this. But I think that he could definitely be a top 5 wide receiver in the AFC, even if his stats are better than 1,440 and 9 touchdowns. I think that this is closer to a minimum as opposed to Juju's, which was closer to a maximum. I think that Michael Pittman will definitely be a top 5 production wide receiver in the AFC next season. And I think that 1,500 yards is not out of the realm of possibility. At number 4, we have Tyreek Hill. I have Tyreek Hill projected at 118 catches on 170 targets, 69.4%, 1,298 yards, 11 touchdowns, and Tua is the point of emphasis. Tua hasn't not had a bad career. He was, I believe, 6-3 his first season and 7-5 his second season, making him 13-8, which is pretty good. He's a very short pass quarterback. I think his average yards per completion is 9.8 or something, compared to Patrick Mahomes, which is over 12. I think that he's going to gel well with Tyreek Hill, and I know that Tyreek Hill catches a lot of deep balls, but his yards per reception goes along with Patrick Mahomes' yards per completion pretty closely. And I think that there's going to be a break even between Tyreek Hill's deep catches and the way that Tua plays football. And I think that Tua is going to win that fight. I think that they're going to play football more like Tua has been playing. And that's what I'm predicting using this. I think that Tyreek's gonna have a lot of targets, a lot of catches, a lot of quick yards. He's gonna be more of a slot receiver with some deep catches, and he's gonna have 11 touchdowns, which is a lot compared to the number of touchdowns Tua is used to throwing. I think that he still has under 30 touchdowns in the almost 30 games he's played. At number 3, we have Stefon Diggs. I have Diggs catching 109 passes on 165 targets for 66 completion percentage, 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns, 79 yards per game, and 12 yards per reception. This is wrong. Point of emphasis, not much. We already know what Stefon Diggs is. We already know who he is and what he's going to do. Stefon Diggs is a pretty consistent guy. I don't think he's going to have a 2020 again. I think he's going to have a season more similar to last year. I think that they're going to keep the ball. I think that they're going to have their mix of deep passes and quick passes. I think he's going to have more touchdowns this year, around the 10 mark. I think the other guys on the Bills are going to step up, like Gabriel and their other wide receivers that didn't get as much of the spotlight the last couple of years, but have played their role. And I think that Stefon Diggs is going to be more of a role-playing star. He's going to get his, but it's not going to be like 2019 or 2020. It's not going to be like 2020. He's not going to be first-team All-Pro, but he's going to be a very solid, possibly Pro Bowl wide receiver. At number 2, we have Davante Adams. I have Adams catching 109 on 145 targets for 75% completion, 1,365 yards and 12 touchdowns, 80.3 yards a game, and 12.5 yards per reception. Point of emphasis is the new system, Derek Carr and Hunter Renfrow. Derek Carr is a good quarterback. You won't hear me say that very often. I'm very critical of Derek Carr because he doesn't win a lot of games. He's only had 2 seasons where he's made the playoffs, and he's only had 1 season where he's played a game in the playoffs and he lost it, scoring less than 20 points. To be fair, he hasn't had a very strong supporting cast with him on offense for much of his career. So I do think that having Davante Adams and Hunter Renfrow this year will be the year to decide, is Derek Carr going to take that next step that he needs to take in order to be a star quarterback. I've been very critical of Derek Carr, especially on this channel. I really need to see how he plays with Davante Adams. But I do think Davante Adams will still be a top wide receiver, even if Derek Carr and the Las Vegas Raiders are not as impressive as some people think that they will be. The other thing is, even if Derek Carr doesn't have the season that people think he's going to, will Hunter Renfrow get his? I think if it's between Davante Adams getting his and Hunter Renfrow getting his, Davante Adams will get his. So I do think that Davante Adams will be a top 3 wide receiver in the AFC production-wise for next year. That's why I have him at almost 1,400 yards and 12 touchdowns. And last but certainly not least, we have Ja'Marr Chase. And I have Ja'Marr Chase increasing his numbers from last season. 93 catches on 140 targets, 66% completion, up from last year. I have him catching 15 and 15 touchdowns, 89 yards a game, 16.5 yards per reception. Biggest points of emphasis. It's his second year in the NFL. People usually improve from their first to second year, even though you can't really improve much from 1,455 and 13 touchdowns. And how do you improve from here? That's the real question. I think that if Ja'Marr Chase can find a way to improve from what he did with Joe Burrow last year, he'll easily be the number 1 wide receiver in the AFC. Stefon Diggs has become too much of a role player in Buffalo, and Gabriel Davis is going to blow up next year. And then everyone else, Adams, Hill, Pittman, Juju, Cortland Sutton, Amari Cooper, and Robert Woods. Everyone on this list, except for Keenan Allen and Stefon Diggs, the 2 most consistent guys in NFL history, are with new quarterbacks. I think that Ja'Marr Chase has a major advantage for productivity of being with the same system, being with the same guys. And I think that he's going to be able to find ways to improve with Joe Burrow. They're going to improve their offensive scheme, and Chase is going to have an amazing first-team All-Pro wide receiver season this year coming up. Him and I forgot who I put for the NFC video, but I think that him and maybe even CeeDee Lamb, I think that he will be a first-team All-Pro, but it'll be very interesting to see who does end up getting the selections, but I think Ja'Marr Chase is in the running for sure. So, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm going to try and get more videos out next week when I'm not working every single day of the week, but with that said, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. leave a like, subscribe to the channel. See you guys all in the next one. Peace.